Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here on short notice. I wish we were here under happier circumstances. But we've come together this morning because the Trump administration has suddenly and without warning blocked nearly $30 million of funding for Rhode Island students here in our state. I'm joined today by our Mayor of Providence, Brett Smiley, by Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green, Eric Gurna, the Interim Executive Director of the Providence After School Alliance, Malargo Seek, the COO of Dorcas International, and I know that we also have representatives here from other organizations, including Down City Design and I believe the Boys and Girls Clubs. We are here today to talk about the impact and the steps that we are going to take to address this misguided and, in my view, illegal action by the Trump administration. Let's just start at a high level here. After school and summer school programs are essential to keeping the children of working parents safe and supervised, and in preventing students from falling behind academically. Summer learning loss is a real thing. It can set kids back by 1 to 3 months each school year. So if you do not have adequate summer school and after school programming, then it hurts kids academically, it hurts their families, and it hurts the entire state. Students in Rhode Island have been through so much. They've been through COVID, they've been through remote learning, they've been through a mental health crisis that is plaguing young people across our country. And now, just when Rhode Island students are starting to get back on track, the Trump administration is pulling the rug out from under them by canceling funding with no warning that is essential funding for summer school and after school programs. In addition, they are clawing back funding for teacher training and recruitment, for technology to help students succeed in the classroom, for multi-language education. As everybody knows, across the state of Rhode Island, and particularly here in Providence, you have students who speak literally dozens of languages, and you need to have the funding to have educators who are trained and able to help those students succeed, learn English, and thrive as they are doing so. In total, the administration is blocking nearly $7 billion of federal funding for after-school and other educational programs, including nearly $30 million for Rhode Island. And I will say again, this was done with virtually no warning. This funding is typically released every year on July 1st. And just a few days before July 1st, an email was sent out to every state in the country, an email with only a couple of sentences saying that this funding was not going to be delivered, with no explanation as to why. This is completely unjustified, unprecedented, and again, most likely illegal. This is funding that Congress passed on a bipartisan basis. In fact, a Republican-controlled Congress passed a budget with this funding. And the Trump administration does not have the authority to unilaterally withhold it for no reason. Under our system of government, it is Congress that appropriates funds. The executive branch's job is to deliver those funds. The executive branch does not get to just veto whatever they want after it's been signed into law. So we are doing everything we can to fight back and to restore these unlawful cuts. It starts with this, with raising public awareness so that people know what's going on. We're doing it here in Rhode Island, and my House Democratic colleagues are doing it all across the country. Telling the story, letting people know the impact, raising the alarm, because we have seen in other cases that when the Trump administration has cut off funding that was appropriated by Congress, and there is a big public uproar, oftentimes they back off. And in the face of public opinion, they have restored funding for infrastructure, restored funding for education, restored funding for environmental protection that they had initially withheld. So it starts by educating the public so that the public can reach out to their members of Congress and reach out to the administration and demand that this funding be restored. Second, I'm a member of something called the Democratic Caucus Litigation and Rapid Response Task Force. This is a group of House Democrats in Congress. We are going to pursue every legislative avenue that we can find to put pressure on the administration to restore this funding. It starts by making sure that we pass a budget for next year that includes this funding again. By doing that, it will strengthen the legal argument to unlock the funding this year by reaffirming that it is Congress's intention that this money be delivered. Finally, this is going to end up in court, and it's going to end up in court probably in the next few days. I've had conversations already with our state attorney general. I know that he has been in discussion with other states across the country. Again, this is clearly a lawless action by the administration, in my judgment, and it is going to be challenged. This is money that was appropriated by Congress, and the administration is withholding it without even giving any explanation as to why. So we are going to be fighting this in the court of public opinion. We're going to be fighting this legislatively, and we're going to be fighting this in court. But every day counts. These summer school programs have already begun. Teacher training and recruitment has already begun. So you're going to hear from the mayor, the commissioner, and from Eric and Milagro to talk more about what the impacts have been on the ground and what is being done at the state level to triage the impacts of this. But today is not the end of this fight. This is the beginning, because we are not going to let this stand. And so with that, I want to turn it over to a leader who has made education a priority, who has a very hard job already, and whose job is being made even more difficult by the chaos coming out of the Trump administration. Mayor of Providence, Brett Smiley.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you so much for your leadership on this issue and on so many others. You've been a champion for summer learning, extended learning, adult education, and advocating for your district, for Rhode Island, and for Providence. We're really grateful for you bringing this together. In a minute, we'll hear from our commissioner, who is Rhode Island's great champion for all students, and she'll talk about the statewide impact of this. But just in the city of Providence, we rely heavily on 21st Century Learning, Community Learning Center funding for the important work that we do to stop summer learning loss, but also to make more progress. The state has been hard at work in improving outcomes for students in the Providence Public Schools. We are on the right track. Part of the way in which we do that is by extending the learning day and the learning year through partnerships. A lot of those learning opportunities don't happen at PPSD schools provided by PPSD, but rather by partners. And that's what these funds go to. And so we all aspire for better outcomes for our students. We have incredible community partners. Most of the statewide community partners are here in Providence. And so we will be the most affected. We're going to hear from in a second from Providence After School Alliance, which I also serve as the board chair of. But it's not just PASA. It's also AS220, the Down City Design, which works here at PCTA during the summer, doing an amazing program where students have clients and they learn design techniques. They actually deliver a product for their clients, some of which is in the built environment in our city right now. Federal Hill House, which does incredible work. New Urban Arts, UCAP, and then where I started my day this morning at the Boys and Girls Club in Providence. I was at the Fox Point Boys and Girls Club 2 hours ago, watching students on Chromebooks learning digital literacy while also doing play and learning how to swim and all of the other things. It's not just about academics, it's about the social and emotional growth for our students. The Congressman talked about how this generation of students has had to face a lot already in their school years, and some of their non-academic needs are as great as their academic needs, and these partnerships help meet those needs. And so this is of critical importance to the city. I'm happy to be able to give some reassurance to parents and students that summer is funded. Your summer programming is secured, but we're looking at very serious cuts for the fall. we're already planning for the start of the school year. And I know the congressman and many others are making taking really aggressive actions, as he pointed out, both judicially and legislatively, to try to unfreeze these funds. But barring any progress, our families will be impacted in a matter of weeks. And so this is not the first time that the federal government has thrown us a curveball, but this is one of the ones that hits hardest for us here in Providence. Every family and resident in Providence has a stake in this, whether your kid is in one of these programs or not. These are our future neighbors, our future leaders, our future workforce, and they are our future. And so the City of Providence will be working closely with its community partners to both monitor this, to see where gaps can be filled, to lend our voice and our heft to any future prospective legal challenges. But local government alone won't be able to fill every gap created by this presidential administration. Only the federal government can fund some of these programs at the level in which they need to be funded. And so we will all do our part, but the only way this gets solved is through the advocacy that Congressman Magaziner is leading. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for our community partners. I want to recognize both Dorcas and Paso, who are speaking today, and the other partners who are here. These folks have hard jobs on a good day. And then to come into a circumstance where they're having to make excruciating decisions around staffing and enrollment for people who wake up every day committed to the mission of their organization, to have that threatened by things totally outside of their control. I want to thank them for their dedication. These are very much passion jobs, and so we know that it's a hard time, know that we're all in this together, and that everyone's going to do their part, but we couldn't do this without our incredible federal delegation. And I want to thank Congressman Magaziner for his leadership, and of course his colleagues in the delegation, Congressman Amo and Senators Reed and Whitehouse. And turn it back to the Congressman.
Commissioner Infante-Green.
I am so grateful to our federal delegation. I'm grateful for Congressman Magaziner for putting this press conference together and bringing light to something that was very devastating to us. I'm glad that the mayor is here to speak, because it is really important that we all band together. We're also going to hear from Dorcas International and PASA, which are two of the many organizations of Rhode Island that are collaborating with RIDE to help our students and families. We're dealing with unprecedented move by this administration. And at the end of the day, on June 30th, I received an email, and all state education agencies across the nation received the same email. The notice from the U.S. Department of Education that funding that Congress already authorized was being reviewed to make sure that they align with accordance with the President Trump's priorities. What exactly does that mean? Don't we all have the same priorities? We want our kids to read, to do math, to get a better education, to be happy and healthy. We all have the same priorities. So I don't understand what that 83-word email meant. My main priority for Rhode Island as the commissioner is for all our students to get what they need. In Rhode Island, the administration is withholding $30 million. That's a lot of money for us. Title 1C, which is for immigrant children, which we do not get in Rhode Island. Title 2A is supporting effective instruction to increase student achievement by improving the quality and effectiveness of teachers, principals, and other school leaders. This will impact schools, districts, and states as we seek to build better capacity. This will impact every single school district in Rhode Island. Everyone is going to feel this. Title 3A, to help our multilingual students attain English proficiency and meet academic standards. Isn't that the same goal that we all have? Title 4A, to improve student academic achievement and provide a well-rounded education. Supports like music, arts, civics, STEM, college and career counseling. Isn't that the same priority? Title 4B, 21st Century Community Learning. That's what the mayor just talked about. This happens across our state. In addition, adult education has also been paused. But this move by the administration isn't really about title program. It's about students, families, and teachers who work with 21st Century Community Centers, which provide before and after school programs with a range of services like tutoring, youth development activity, family literacy programs, all things we value. Adult Education Rhode Island, which includes GED programs, English literacy classes, career programs for adults. Rhode Island has great teachers who are constantly working to improve their knowledge, skills, and ability. This administration is also holding up funds that are used for professional development for teachers. Districts plan ahead, as they should do. This makes it virtually impossible for us to plan for this coming school year. We don't know when or if these funds will be released. Unfortunately, like many previous federal announcements, much is unclear. I've spoken to my colleagues across the country in red, blue, and purple states. No one has answers. No one saw this coming, and we have been left in the dark. Post-pandemic, Rhode Island ranked 14th in math and recovery, 13th in reading recovery. Rhode Island is recovering faster than all other New England states. That's important. We've never been in this place. We cannot lose this momentum. The momentum right now is at risk unnecessarily. It is irresponsible. I began meeting with Rhode Island leaders on July 1st. While there isn't any more information coming from the U.S. Department of Education, let me be clear, this will impact every one of our districts in one way or another. I will continue advocating for Rhode Island to get the federal funds that Congress has already appropriated for our students. We have met across the nation, all the commissioners, and we are putting together a plan. Because even a delay has an impact. Even if we get this money 2-3 months from now, it has an impact on what happens in our schools come September. We will have to make decisions in the next few weeks. So I promise you, with our federal delegation and with everyone in the state of Rhode Island, we will work hard to ensure that our kids, our teachers, our community get what they're entitled to and what they need to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the Commissioner said, a big part of how we help students make up the ground that was lost during the pandemic and with all of the fallout from that is that out-of-school learning time. Out-of-school learning time, I know, is a top priority of the governor. It's been funded by the General Assembly at the state level. But it takes all of us working together, government, nonprofit, parents, and volunteers, in order to make sure that all students have access to high-quality out-of-school learning time. One of the organizations at the foremost of that effort that unfortunately is being impacted by the Trump administration withholding these funds is the Providence After School Alliance, and I'd like to ask Eric Gurna, the interim executive director of PASA, to share their experience.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'm here as interim executive director of the Providence After School Alliance, which supports high-quality out-of-school time initiatives across Rhode Island, but also here as a member of the Rhode Island After School Network, which includes 500 individuals and providers serving 34,000 children and families across the state. And I know the mayor already shouted you out a little bit, but if you're here with an after-school program or a summer program, can you just make a little noise? Thank you. I'm really up here speaking on behalf of these programs, the young people and families that they serve, and all the programs that couldn't be here in person today. Because as a state and as a community, we will lose so much if the Trump administration's illegal freeze of education's funds is allowed to persist. People are really counting on this funding. And it's been said, and it's worth repeating, this funding was allocated by Congress. It was in the budget signed by the president. And there are many vital programs included in this, and one, as mentioned, is the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, which funds after-school and summer programs across the state and in every state in the country. In the 2023-24 school year, there were over 5,000 students across Rhode Island, and another close to 2,000 5,000 in after-school programs and close to 2,000 in summer programs that were funded by 21st Century Community Learning Centers in communities with limited opportunities. These numbers are likely higher this past year. We're still crunching those numbers. But we know that these young people have safe and engaging places to be when the school day ends and when the school year ends. While their parents and guardians have the peace of mind to be able to work, to take care of their families, these students get healthy snacks and meals, they get help with their schoolwork, they get to participate in STEM and arts and civic engagement and so much more, sports, all while building community with peers and caring adults and building important social skills. They're staying active, they're making art, they're finding their passions, they're finding their voice. Study after study has shown that participation in after school has positive outcomes for students and also for schools and communities. Just last year, the After School Alliance released a report that showed that participation in after school and summer programs improves student engagement, reduces chronic absenteeism, boosts grades and academic achievement, supports young people's mental and physical well-being, and prepares young people to thrive into adulthood. And on that last point, I just learned this morning about a study that was published in the American Education Research Association that showed that students who participate in after school have higher income as young adults and higher educational attainment as young adults. As the commissioner was saying, shouldn't this be all of our priorities? After school and summer programs are also a critical source of employment. There are so many dedicated educators and youth workers whose jobs are at risk. And these aren't just jobs, they're careers in education, in social work, in community development. This funding freeze threatens to undermine livelihoods and communities across the state. If this illegal freeze of funds is allowed to continue, the schools and community organizations that provide these vital programs will be forced to radically cut services. This is hard to talk about because we want to do everything we can to fight this freeze and make sure that it doesn't actually impact our staff, that it doesn't impact communities. But the truth is, in many cases, programs and even whole organizations will close down, ending resources that families have trusted and counted on for generations. Community organizations like ours raise funds every way we can to support children and families. But we rely on this public funding to create the infrastructure. And without it, programs will close. I want to emphasize that this is not just a case of a new administration coming in with their own priorities or values. The legislation that created 21st Century Community Learning Centers was passed years ago, and it has grown over the years with bipartisan support. These funds, along with all the other vital educational programs currently being held, are part of the budget Congress already passed and the president himself signed. I mean, we can't say this enough, that this is an illegal and immoral freeze. It's illegal, it's immoral, and it's cruel to our most vulnerable children and families. We want to urge everyone to reach out to your elected representatives, to encourage them to speak up for children and youth by exerting all of their power, including legal action, to hold the administration accountable until they release the funds. Meanwhile, I want to say, support your local after-school program. We really need all the help we can get right now. And for those members of the media who are here, I know it's important to talk to the elected officials and the official representatives of these organizations, but there are also young people here in the room and in the building who are the experts in their own experience. Shout out to Young Voices, who is represented here. They're available to talk to you as well, to give their own firsthand experience. And part of what after school and summer programs do is we elevate and amplify youth voices. So I want to really encourage you to speak to those students or others that you meet in the building today. And lastly, I just want to thank Representative Magaziner and his staff for organizing this and putting a spotlight on this issue which is just so incredibly important, not just to those of us in the room, but to everybody in the state. So thank you so much.
So again, many different kinds of programming could be impacted by these cuts. After-school programs, support for English language learners, technology, teacher training and recruitment. But I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for questions if there are any. So we're just going to have one other organization speak today, and that is Malargo Sikh, representing Dorcas, which provides some of the adult education services that could be impacted by this action by the administration.
Thank you everybody, and thank you for the invite. Having partnered with PPSD in the past, I can attest to the impact that this is going to have on both the parents and the children and the after-school programs and those community partners that support all the work that goes into the growth of our children. So I would like to share that Dorcas International is proud to be part of a network of 19 adult education providers funded by the Rhode Island Department of Education. Federal funding provides educational services to thousands of Rhode Islanders adults who lack basic literacy and foundational skills. Almost 63,000 adults aged 25 and older in Rhode Island do not have a high school diploma. 63,000 adults aged 25 and older in Rhode Island do not have high school diploma. Let's remember that. Dorcas International provides adult education to any Rhode Islander looking to learn or improve their English, which in turn helps them to get a better paying job, help their children with their schoolwork, and become their best advocates for future success for themselves and for their children. Rhode Island is losing over $2 million in adult education basic grants and adult integrated English literacy civics education grants, which are two of the 7 buckets that the commissioner had just mentioned of funding cuts across the nation. These cuts would be significant impact. And what will suffer because of this is workforce readiness will suffer, as adult education provides essential skills in literacy, GED prep, ESL, and digital literacy, which help adults enter or advance in the workforce. We will see job training gaps widen. There's already a widen in job training, and it will continue. As employers are increasingly seeking skilled workers, cutting funding means adults will not be prepared to fill these roles. Our local economy will be weakened, as less educational population leads to lower wages, reduced productivity, and less tax revenue for Rhode Island. And most importantly, we know parents are a child's first teacher. If a parent is not thriving, then the child will face challenges and are marginalized or face challenges in their growth and learning. And we know that, right? For those of us that work already in this population, we know that that's a huge challenge as it is. And so this will just increase. Furthermore, these funding cuts are attacking our marginalized communities, as the impact will be severe on immigrants, people of color, and low-income communities. Adult education is a smart investment. Studies show that every dollar spent on education yields significant returns in economic productivity and reduced public spending. To illustrate this, I would like to share a brief story with you. As part of one of our classes, which is a family literary class, we asked the parents and child to do an activity together to promote language development. The activity is share your favorite book with me. Families are asked to read aloud together for 15 minutes, 3 times per week, and log their time. They use a website with books in both English and Spanish. And at the end of the month, parents reflect on what they learned about their children and how the activity helped them. The feedback we received revealed that many parents were surprised by their child's reading ability, interests, and preferences. Some discovered that their teens love romance and horror stories, while others were proud of their child's bilingual reading skills. Several families share stories from their cultural backgrounds. And one mother-daughter pair even wrote a story together. Many parents reported feeling more confident in their English skills and said that the reading time extended beyond the minimum, with some reading on their own. Now, this is just an illustration of one of our classes. There are additional illustrations of the worksite training that we provide that prepares folks with those skills to enter the workforce, or prepares them with a better English level in order for them to get a better paying job or to advocate for their child. So cutting these fundings to programs like these would mean dismantling the very bridges that connect families. And so, along with Dorcas International and other of the community partners that provide adult education, we strongly oppose cuts to this program. Adult education is critical for meeting the basic needs of Rhode Island's most vulnerable population, as well as our local employers. This is going to have a ripple effect across the board. Thank you very much for having us, and thank you both.
All right. Well, we'll open it up for questions. I'll just make two final points. The first is, unfortunately, we've gained a lot of experience over the last 6 months dealing with the Trump administration cutting off legally appropriated funds. And what we have learned from that experience is that, yes, the legal avenue can be effective. The legislative is harder, but we do everything we can. But what we've learned most of all is that the most effective way to push back is raising the public awareness. And that has led in the past, in some cases, to funding being restored. The administration tried to fire all the frontline workers at the Social Security Administration and shut down the phone line. There was public uproar, and they backed off. They backed off on cutting off funding for Head Start back in February. They backed off on, we have had a lot of success in getting Rhode Island's infrastructure funding, like for the Washington Bridge and for 95 restored, et cetera, et cetera. So this public part of it is really key to the strategy of how we get this funding back. And the last point I would make before we open it up is to all of the students and parents who are watching, I know this is a scary and frustrating time on many levels, but I hope what you see today is that you have leaders in Rhode Island who are fighting for you. Leaders in Rhode Island who are prepared to stand up and act aggressively to get you the help, the support that you are deserving of. And I want to thank those leaders who joined us here today, and also those who couldn't make it today, but who are also fighting every day for Rhode Island students. And with that, we're happy to take questions if there are any.
You say about the community together, but why open a lawsuit against the Trump administration? You want this to go all the way to the Supreme Court, and you're going to lose again, the Democrats?
This
Because
isn't a
the community get together.
no, this isn't about Democrats or Republicans. This is about getting the funding for Rhode Island
So you guys
students.
say it's illegal.
And I believe it is. Because listen, understand, under the Constitution, Congress passes a budget. The president signs a budget, which he did. And then that's it. The president's job then is to deliver the funding. And so I think this will work its way through the court system. We could also avoid that if they would just restore the funding, which they should do. But regardless, we're going to push forward, on every opportunity. And as the commissioner said, this is impacting not just so-called blue states, but red states too. Everybody was caught off guard by this last week. Nobody saw it coming. And I think that supporting Rhode Island students is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's just the right thing to do.
That's the message.
Yeah.
Democrat and Republican together, everybody get affected.
That's right.
Or don't use the talking point of Democrats, because you always got lose.
Yeah.
And a lot of this non-profit organization is about a paycheck. It's not about students. We gotta get that clear in the community. And the Latino community will know that.
I'm going to push back on you there.
Nah.
First of all, we'll give a chance to others to ask questions, but I'll just
Yeah.
push back and say, Dorcas, the Providence After School Alliance, the Boys and Girls Clubs, these organizations that we have here today, I guarantee you for them, it is not just about a paycheck. There are a lot of things that they could be doing, but they have chosen to devote themselves to serving Rhode Island students, and it's our job to support
In your
them.
opinion.
Yeah.
In your opinion.
Who else?
Could you explain,
Steph?
Congressman, you said it was most likely illegal? What's the gray area there?
So, the administration has taken the position that that the president has the authority to withhold funding if he has policy disagreements. The Supreme Court ruled in the 1970s that that is not the case. So in the 1970s, Richard Nixon tried to do the same thing. The Supreme Court ruled that once funding has been appropriated, the president has to deliver the funding unless, there's some legitimate reason for it, like, for example, a contract ended up costing less than was expected or something like that. The administration, and particularly Russ Vought, the OMB director, has taken the position that 1970s Supreme Court decision was incorrect. And I think what they're trying to do is get a new Supreme Court ruling to give them the green light to withhold funding for whatever reason they want. That would essentially give the president a limitless line item veto, which is something that some state governors have, but that the president never has. And so, I think that the administration wants this to end up to the Supreme Court. They're basically trying to get a second opinion to try to overturn that 1970s case. But, this is like what they're pushing is a legal theory that until this year was considered a very wild theory, and this was considered to be a settled issue, but they want to try to raise it again.
For Commissioner Infante-Green, we talked about the stake that Rhode Island has, about $30 million in funding. Can you kind of break that out by maybe some of our larger districts to some of our smaller districts? What's at stake for Providence, for example?
For example, for Providence, it's about $5 million. So, and this cuts across, because even though we're talking about 21st century, we're talking about also resources in the classroom. We're talking about technology. We're talking about teachers getting training. That's how our teachers get trained at the beginning of the school year. These dollars go to support them, to support the students. That's how we get this done. So the impact is going to be felt throughout the entire state. And when we talk about multilingual learners, we all know, because we've talked about this before, that we have had a great influx in Rhode Island. That is going to be devastating for us. And we don't know, right now they say it's under review. We don't even know if they're going to make cuts if that money comes. We don't know anything. And I think that's the most challenging part of this, is not being able to plan. And we have people that are paid under these funding streams in schools. People that help students, teachers that do reading, that are MLL teachers. These are the people that are going to be impacted, and the students in our classroom are going to be impacted.
Can you mention some other districts, other figures that?
I don't know all the figures off the top of my head. I can get you that. But it's distributed by student population. And in terms of Title II, which is the professional development, that directly gets correlated. So we know that we have adopted the science of reading. We have adopted high quality curriculum. This is how teachers have the time to learn how to actually use the materials, how to actually improve their teaching. And our teachers have been knocking it out of the park. We have seen the work that's happened here that has moved Rhode Island. We cannot allow that to be impacted. And that's what's at stake here. And we can give you the breakdown for every district, but every single district is going to be impacted. Every single superintendent is making tough decisions right now, because 3 months down the line means you can't pay someone.
When do you have to start making those decisions to lay people off?
In the next month. We will be doing that, and we will have to notify teachers whether they're going to be able to come in for professional development, whether there are going to be, additional Chromebooks in the classroom, whether there is going to be supports for the students in the classroom. All that is at stake right now. Aside from what happens outside of school, what happens with adult education, it is everything. It feels like there's a misunderstanding of what our goal is. And our goal needs to be the same, regardless of political party. It has to be our students and our education system. This is the only way Rhode Island and the country will thrive.
Is this, could this have ripple effects for the end of the school takeover of Providence Public Schools?
No, the one thing has nothing to do with the other, but I will tell you, it will impact what all our schools in Rhode Island look at. So if you're a parent, if you're an educator, this is the time to speak up. We will continue to fight. I will continue to advocate. I will advocate with the federal delegation. I will advocate with anyone that I need to. to make sure that Rhode Island gets what it needs, that our children are not left behind and are not part of some political tug of war. That can't be what we're doing as a nation.
Anyone else?
Congressman, have any of your Republican colleagues indicated that they're going to complain about this?
I haven't heard from any yet, but we're going to be back in Washington on Monday, and I will certainly be talking to some of them about it.
I got a similar question then for Infante-Green of, have you spoken with any colleagues in red states that also plan to just speak out about this?
So I speak to my colleagues in red states and purple states almost daily.
Right.
And there's a lot of things. We're all planning for the same thing at this point. Right?
Which states have you been in contact with?
I'd rather not say, because I think for them it's a tricky situation, right? They're in a different place than I am. And we work as colleagues, and part of the work that we do is really under confidentiality in terms of how we proceed moving forward. They're in a different place. Their voice is different, and they have to look out for their students and their school system the same way that I do.
And have you still not heard anything back from the federal government since that email?
We have not heard back, and we intend to have another conversation. I can be, as many as you know, very persistent, and I intend to continue to advocate, and if I have to show up at the door of the Department of Education or OMB, wherever it is, I will do that. And I will be doing that with my colleagues, because every one of us and every one of our states care about what happens with our kids. But my priority is Rhode Island.
Yes, in the back.
What are some actions that you would recommend that people take today, whether it is students, parents, community leaders? What are some actions that we can take today, tomorrow, to support you guys in this fight?
Oh, that's such a great question. So there are a number of ways to use your voices in whatever way you feel comfortable with. So calling directly the Federal Department of Education and giving them feedback. Calling, members of Congress. I know that here in Rhode Island, Senator Reid, Senator Whitehouse, Congressman Amo, and I are all united on this, but it still doesn't hurt to reach out to us so that we can then say to our colleagues, like, hey, our phones are ringing off the hook with people who are upset about what's going on. Another thing, if you are comfortable and fluent in social media, like, raise the alarm on social media. That is where more and more people are getting their news from, and it's a more and more important way for people to communicate and share their stories. So get on Instagram, get on TikTok, get on whatever other things that you all younger people are on that I probably don't even know about. But let's get a drumbeat going, right? Let's get a drumbeat, because again, we have seen this work already in other contexts. Like, it worked with Social Security Administration, it worked with the VA, it worked with Head Start. The public pressure does matter. So I'd say just raise your voices and tell your stories in whatever way you feel comfortable with. Okay, thank you all. Appreciate you all being here.